Now, thanks for joining, everybody. It's Stuart Stevens, and I am really pleased and honored to have somebody who I admired for many different ways, from many different angles, Congressman Jared Moskowitz. Thanks so much for joining, Congressman.
Oh, thanks, Stuart. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, man. You know, I always think it's useful in these things to kind of start with a little background, because you really have a remarkable background. I think, is it safe to say you're the only human walking the planet that worked for Joe Lieberman and was appointed by DeSantis to...
My background in today's times is definitely strange, unicorn-ish, if you...
I love that.
Hard to explain to certain people in today's climate.
And you're a native Floridian.
Native Floridian, interned in the Clinton administration when I was in college at GW, wound up working as an intern on Lieberman's presidential campaign, worked for Al Gore in the White House.
Right.
Got elected very young. I was 25 years old, a law student, to my city commission. Had the horrible shooting at my high school, Marjorie Stoneman Douglas, which is what led me to become the emergency management director in Florida, because that was what I did in the private sector, and passed the Marjorie Stoneman Douglas School Safety Act, which raised the age to 21 to buy guns, 3-day waiting periods, red flag laws in Florida. And so, I took my political hat off and went and did a job. Turned out we got a 1 in 100 year pandemic while I was doing that job, and then went to a county commission, and then returned, back to partisan political politics when I got elected to Congress 3 years ago. So yes, interesting background in today's day and age. If I could write a book, the things I could say.
Well, that's still legal. We got a little window while it's still legal. But I really admire the fact that it's really the best thing I've heard about DeSantis, that he appointed you, that, someone who could actually do the job for the right reasons. And I just think that's increasingly rare across the board.
Well, I think what the governor understood is that in Florida, the director of emergency management may be the most important job after the governor. And it's the job that if that person doesn't do well, right,
the governor suffers the most.
The governor suffers.
Yeah.
And so I think what he was looking at is, first of all, it's a nonpartisan job, so you have to take off your political hat. But he was looking for the guy who would do a good job for the state, which would then benefit him. And so, that's why originally when I was offered the job, I turned it down. I was like, I'm not going to help Governor DeSantis. I just voted against him. I raised money against him.
Right.
Ultimately, the parents in Parkland convinced me to go take that job because government failed them in what happened at my high school, and this was an opportunity to make government work in times of crisis.
And this, to me, gives you really almost a unique angle into what's happening to FEMA, because you've seen it so much on the ground. What is happening with that? What do you think is how's this going to play out?
Yeah, so let me say a couple of things about that, if you would just give me a couple of minutes. So here's what I would say, right? The president is right that FEMA needs reform. It's why since I got here, I've been trying to reform FEMA. Part of that reform that's needed is to get FEMA out of Homeland. Homeland has become too big. It's become too bureaucratic. And they have FEMA doing all of the grant writing for all of the agencies within FEMA, well beyond FEMA scope. It's what's gotten FEMA off of their core mission, which is response and coordination and recovery after these large disasters, right? And so the president has seen that and understands that FEMA needs reform. What's going on is that the secretary, Kristi Noem, is trying to destroy FEMA, right? She's literally trying to take FEMA and turn it into the Newark airport, okay? And just totally ruin it and make sure it just doesn't work. Well, that's not going to fare well for states like Mississippi, Alabama, and Louisiana, where the speaker and Steve Scalise are from. If they get a Category 4 or stronger storm this summer, their states will go bankrupt without FEMA. They will not be able to respond without FEMA. I mean, she's a governor from a state that didn't use FEMA that often because they didn't have to deal with major disasters, yet she's the expert. Okay, so I think she's doing the president a tremendous disservice when it comes to this summer if we have to use FEMA for a hurricane, let alone other unforeseen disasters. We haven't had a major earthquake since the 90s. FEMA would fail right now based on what Kristi Noem has done to FEMA. So I have these bills. They're bipartisan, working with Byron Donalds across the aisle to get FEMA out of Homeland, to block grant some money down to the states because the president wants states to take some more responsibility. Those two things would overhaul FEMA. They would make FEMA faster in coordination and response. It would get it away from them running, immigration grants, which has gotten them into some political hot water. Let Homeland run those grants themselves. But I'm warning people right now. I am desperately concerned that what Kristi Noem has allowed to go on in Homeland to FEMA may make FEMA inoperable this summer.
You know what? Help me out with the politics of this. If she was successful, why would it be good for anybody politically? I mean, starting with the president. What's the lot? Is there a logic here? I don't understand it.
I mean, you're asking me to explain logic. I mean, look, I think that the people in the Trump administration can be broken into three different categories. There's the sane, there's the insane, and then there's the clinically insane. Okay. And this idea that we don't need FEMA comes from the clinically insane wing of the staff that's there. Okay. Again, president is right. It needs reform. He appointed a council. I support that. Okay. But this idea that we can just eliminate FEMA, which we can't do, by the way, because it's in the Stafford Act in Congress. Right. But this idea that they're just going to get rid of FEMA, they're going to, I will tell you,
hollow it out.
I will tell you, more people will suffer. Okay, in dramatic ways. In red states, by the way. They've paused all FEMA grants for Texas and Florida. These are grants that are funded by Congress. These are grants that are under a president declaration. Of course, you can give grants more scrutiny, make sure there's no waste, fraud, and abuse, but they have no authority just to pause them when these grants are owed to these states. And so, what they're doing there, I know it doesn't get a lot of attention, right? It's obviously much more fun to talk about getting a free plane from Qatar. But what they're doing to FEMA is just it's unexplainable by using logic. To your point.
Yeah, look, I'm a seventh generation Mississippian, and one of the great ironies has always been, and you made this point. Well, you made it a lot, but you made it when you were on with Rick, that without the federal government, these states like Mississippi would just cease to exist as functioning governments. We get 40% of the state budget from the Fed.
Yeah, it's not just that. Take richer states, right, with bigger budgets like Florida and Texas. They'd have to raid their healthcare funds, their DOT funds, their education funds. If they got a double hit in the summer, right, they wouldn't have enough money to function either. And so this idea that you can get rid of the Stafford Act or get rid of FEMA will prove to be costly and will expose the president. I think the secretary will expose the president if she continues down this path.
So what do you think is going to happen? Do you think there's going to be some sort of sense of sanity here at the last moment?
Oh, I have no idea what's going to happen. Right? Aren't you entertained? Isn't that the point of, next week on the new episode of the administration? I mean, that's what's going on here. I have no idea. Did you know that the president was going to come out one day and be like, good news, great news. I'm getting a free 747 from Qatar. Great people, very strong. I mean, did you have any idea that was going to happen? I mean, I feel like Putin's going to come out and say, okay, new plan. We're going to take pieces of Ukraine and just give it to Trump and create like a little Trump land, right? It'd be an amusement park for Trump. Okay?
Like a new
who knows what's going to go on now?
Yeah, it is crazy. So look, I worked a lot in Florida, right? I worked for Bush in 2000, a great landslide. I worked for Charlie Crist, media consultant. I worked for Mel Martinez. These were all incredibly tough races. Bush 2004 was tough. Mel wouldn't have won without Bush winning by the margin that he did. But so what happened? I mean, DeSantis in his first race the margin was tiny, right? I mean, very small relatively.
Yeah, it was like 50,000.
Yeah. What happened in Florida?
Well, so I think a couple things happened. First of all, the Republicans invested heavily in voter registration. Rick Scott pouring tens of millions of dollars into that. Ron DeSantis pouring tens of millions of dollars into that. And the Democrats not having any money because they've been in the minority there now for 30 plus years. Okay. That's number one. Number two is they then, nixed the voter rolls, making people re-register if you got mail-in ballots. So those two things led to dramatic increase in Republican registration. But then also, let's be honest, Florida did a good job after COVID. And so people decided to move there. So migration changed. So you had more Republicans from New Jersey and New York and Chicago and California move there in my district, by the way. My district has changed dramatically. It went from a D+5 to a D+2. All of this is migration. And so there's now 1.2 million more registered Republicans than Democrats. Right. We are a red state. There's just no doubt about that. And so, yeah, Democrats are going to have to dig themselves out of the hole. But the Democratic Party now, you can see Republicans think we're basically irrelevant in Tallahassee. They're fighting amongst themselves.
Yeah, I think that's fascinating and inevitable when they think that they're bulletproof and that those interfactional wars become so important.
Well, as you know, that's how Democrats lost power. They started fighting amongst themselves up there. Now, because of all the gerrymandering, it'll be a little more difficult.
Yeah.
But yeah, look, this could be the beginning of the path, way back for Democrats, especially because 26 will be a better year.
Yeah. Are the Democrats, if they did a better job with registration, would that help a lot? What is sort of breaking down?
Oh yeah, but we need tens. Oh yeah, Stuart, of course, but we need tens of millions of dollars, right, to go out and register folks. I mean, right now, the only way a Democrat can win a governor or get a cabinet seat, he's going to have to win Republicans, right? I mean, so you're going to have a moderate message, middle of the road, and be able to appeal to Republicans and independents that lean Republican. Okay, that's the only way. It's not impossible. It's just going to take the right type of candidate with the right type of message.
Yeah. So let me stress test an idea and see where you come down on it. I could make two cases as a political consultant. One, that Democrats should be focused just on a couple of issues, like the economy, like and these cuts. That's door number one. The other is we no longer live in a world in which there's a unified message stream, and Democrats should do everything. And what they're doing, different people will hear it. Let AOC and Bernie go out and do that. Let somebody else, if they have a passionate case to talk about what was happening, like the senator did when he went down to the prison. Let all of that happen, and let those that respond to it. I mean, in campaigns we used to try to have like an education week, and now it seems like you can't have an education hour. Which of those, or is that a false choice? Which of those do you think is a smarter politics?
Well, it's interesting. Between door number one and door number two, I choose like the middle. Okay, right. And I'll tell you why.
Yeah,
I think Democrats do need a shorter message. Right. We can't have a policy paper of 50 things. Doesn't work in today's media cycle. Donald Trump has proven that. We've lost multiple times because of that. It's all about messaging. It's all about communication. I think it's of the economy, and it's the cuts to Medicaid, Social Security, Medicare. That's it. I think that's what Democrats should be talking about on loop. I think every time we talk about, and that doesn't mean that there's not other injustices going on that we can't recognize. Okay. But I think every time we take the bait and we talk about El Salvador or Libya or all this other stuff, it's a good day for the president when we're not talking about the economy and the tariffs and the stock market and what he's doing to take seniors' benefits and healthcare away. And so I do think you got to have message discipline. I also think door two, you can have AOC and Bernie, let them go out and do their thing. We have different messengers in the Democratic Party. They're progressive messengers. I'm a moderate messenger, which is why when I listen to this debate between James Carville and David Hogg, I don't think one's more right than the other. What I would say, it's all of the above. David Hogg is right that we need better messengers in the Democratic Party. But I would say with David, we don't need better progressive messengers. We have a ton of progressive messengers. We need more middle of the road messengers who can go on television, right, and connect with the American people and get off this message that the Democratic Party is out of touch. But James Carville is also right, saying, David, wonderful, this is great, but it's all about winning elections. And so purity is great. We can, make everyone as pure as we want, but then we'll continue to be in the minority party. There are 20 seats that matter. That's the only thing that matters to making Hakeem Jeffries speaker. My seat, 19 others, right? Seats that Donald Trump won. You can't run AOC in those seats. You got to run people who are more moderate. And so the more pure we want to try to get these folks, that's great. But, then understand, will continue to be in the minority. Making Hakeem Jeffries the speaker is the most important thing Democrats can focus on. I know it's 18 months away. I know everyone's furious and angry, and they have every right to be. But if you want to put brakes, if you want to get power of the purse back, if you want to get oversight back, subpoenas back, all of that stuff, you got to make Hakeem Jeffries speaker. Nothing else, in my opinion, matters other than winning elections and that goal of getting back a gavel.
Yeah, it's what we're focused on at the Lincoln Project. And, I think there's a good chance that that list of 20 could expand, and looking more like a 2010 year or 94 year.
Maybe. Republicans are going to have tons of money. I mean, Donald Trump's doing $35 million fundraisers, right? So it's not like 2 years ago, right, where, Biden was still president and we outraised Republicans. Hakeem's going to raise tons of money. And money means communication, okay? But they're going to have boatloads and boatloads, because the last thing Trump wants is to lose a branch here, okay? His first 2 years will be very different than his last 2 years if Hakeem Jeffries has the gavel. And so, look, we got to win. Margin's important, but we got to win. We got to put people up in races that can win. We got to give them the space to talk about issues that fit those districts, right? And we can't hold them to this litmus test, that would prohibit them from winning that district.
Yeah, I mean, it's a tremendous political irony and malpractice. I mean, the Republican Party really has become an extremist movement, I think, as somebody who worked in the party for years.
I mean, it's a party of one. I mean, it's literally, if you were going to a restaurant, it would just be table for one, okay? The party is one person. They're not a party.
I agree.
It's one person with a bunch of followers. And look, from a political analyst standpoint, look, Democrats are going through it now. Like, who's the leader? Which direction are we going to go? Republicans are going to go through that in 28. It's going to be fascinating. Yeah.
And there's always been a lot of talk about how Republicans are better at messaging. And there's some truth to that. I mean, Rick and I, we were in the Republican Party. We understood this. But
there's a lot of truth to that because we care about the truth. Right? I mean, that's a core difference between
there's that, and it's a much more homogeneous audience.
Yeah.
It's much easier if you're putting on a concert for people that like one kind of music. And that has been so much the case in the Republican Party. I mean, Trump's coalition in 2020 was 85% white. Then, he did do a little better with non-whites. He dropped to 84% white. Meanwhile, in the Democratic Party, you're putting on a concert for people that like all different kinds of music. And I think that makes it much more challenging. Now, ultimately, that's a great strength of the Democratic Party, that it has that diversity, that it has that ability to appeal to different people, but it only works if it works.
Well, and that's my point, right? And diversity is great. It's what makes us different from them. But at the same time, we shouldn't be turning off people, right? Yeah. We shouldn't be excluding people. Some of our language has been making us look out of touch and excluding them, and it's driven them towards Trump begrudgingly, okay? And so we have a big tent. All of these ideas are welcome, from AOC to the most, moderate member, right? Let it all in. Understand we got to have a strategy, right? Jared Golden is winning a Trump district. AOC can't win there, right? So Jared Golden has to do different things, right? Let Jared win. Let him go win that district. Let Marie go win her district, right? Let these folks go win their district. Then we have the majority. That's the focus. But we get caught up in our emotions, right? We take the bait. We let Republicans divide us because we're spooling people up. And so, again, Democrats have to take a little page out of Republican playbook, which is, for them, it's all about getting power. It's all about getting power. Look what power can do. We got to be like that. We got to get power. And that's going to come by getting the House back.
Yeah, I mean, when I worked in the party, that's all we talked about. I mean, honestly, and I think we said a lot of things that some of us thought were values, core principles, that turned out just to be marketing slogans, like character counts, strong on Russia, none of that mattered. Strong on the deficit. It turns out we didn't believe any of that. Well, listen, I'll let you go, but I just want to thank you for what you're doing. And how does your race look? How are you feeling about it?
Well, I feel good. I mean, look, Ron
You've won
DeSantis
tough
won.
races.
Yeah, Ron DeSantis won my district almost 4 years ago by 1.5 points. I still won by 5. Donald Trump lost my district by 1.5 points. I still won by 5. So I fit my district. Republicans would love to not be running against me in my district, but it's a D+2 seat, right? And this was a seat that has changed dramatically. Ted Deutsch, who was before me, won by 17. Biden won by 13, right? And through redistricting and migration, this seat is the most competitive seat now in Florida. And because Republicans view me as a good messenger, they would love to take me out. But at the end of the day, I'm going to win. I'm not worried about that. I'm going to stay focused on the things that matter to my district: the economy, Social Security, Medicare, Medicaid, veterans benefits. Those are the things that people in my district are concerned about. Let the NRCC do whatever they want. Let them run whoever they want. I'm winning the Republican areas in my district because I'm willing to work across the aisle and have a record of doing that. But I'll also be willing to stand up to them when they're doing stupid stuff. But that goes to my point, Stuart, right? Let Democrats go out and win. Like the base needs to give everyone the space to do that. And then when we're in the majority, we can fight over priorities.
Yeah, exactly. And you've started a new Substack, correct? That's from your under your name. That's going to be there, and so people should subscribe to that, and they should contribute to your campaign. Absolutely, everybody here. Well,
Stuart, now since the rules have apparently now changed, you can contribute to my campaign, or if you want to donate a new plane to the Air Force that I can use, okay. If you got a plane that you want to donate to the Air Force that I can use, can't be donated directly to me, of course, can't accept that. But if you donate it to the Air Force, I might be able to use it. It can be smaller than a 747, by the way.
No, you don't need something that big. You do a citation.
I'm a petite person. I don't need it.
You're a modest guy. You'll take that.
Yeah, I'm perfect for the middle seat, by the way.
All right, buddy. Well, thank you for joining us, and thank you for everything you're doing. We'll talk soon.
Thanks, Stuart.
All the best.